Hello, everyone, and welcome to part two of this kind of rapid fire tabulation of brainstormed ideas. Just going quickly here. So here's the next page. Okay, screen capture if you'd like. All right. Strategies, plural, right? For example, in the Google Doc, Beyond the Big Three, and that's the title of the Google Doc, we talk about an Elon-centric strategy. And, if we were to pursue that strategy, and actually this is the beauty of collective human intelligence, different groups can pursue different strategies in parallel. So we come up with a really tight narrative, a really tight story. Now, it turns out that Elon does a Twitter space, an X space, under a different name, which I won't divulge, but we can talk about that. And so we can actually get one-on-one, well, not one-on-one, but one-on-many time with Elon when there's sometimes fewer than 100 people in the room, and it's obvious it's him. And a friend of ours who introduced us to that fact said, Elon is looking for people like us. So we may not be so far from Elon as one might assume. Next question is goal or goals, right? So obviously we start with the ultimate goal of cooling the planet, and then we can work our way backwards to milestones. Like one key milestone is, hitting a really significant critical mass to be defined of people working on this together in PFCP as a collective human intelligence. Once we hit that critical mass, then that's a key milestone. Then we can really accelerate a whole bunch of things in parallel. And by the way, these topics aren't in any particular order. I'm sorry I didn't make that clear beforehand, but I think that's kind of obvious. Another topic, this is kind of a little bit of a weird one, but I think it's important, is exit interviews. We're going to lose some people because we're going to have so many people coming through, and it's not going to be a big dramatic loss. We're probably going to be growing over time quite rapidly, is my intention. But nonetheless, some people will drop out. So we might have an exit interview. Hey, you're leaving. That's cool. We're not going to try to pressure you or shame you or anything like that. But, why? We just kind of curious. Can we talk about it even for 5 minutes to find out, what? We're just curious. Why are you leaving? Right? I mean, this thing is so important, etc. Okay. Next topic. Lessons from Landmark. I mentioned Landmark in part one. They don't advertise, by the way, or I don't know if they've changed that now, but it's all about essentially kind of like multi-level marketing, except there's no free toaster oven in the deal. You just bring people because you love it and you want them to experience it. So, there's a lot we can learn from their model. Next topic, Guy optimization. Guy, you are a force of nature, and you woke a whole bunch of us up, and you're quite controversial, blah, blah, blah. So you're quite a force. So for example, when we're out there marketing and people say, oh, that's that guy who thinks we're all going to be dead in 5 years ago or whatever, well, come and meet the dude. Ask him your questions for yourself. Ask him, tell him your challenges, whatever. And another subtopic under Guy optimization could be, like we have a specific slot of time, not necessarily every week, but occasionally a specific slot of time where people can, give their challenges, their complaints, their whatevers, about to Guy directly. And one of the nice things about having that time slot is if anyone, crosses that line under normal conditions when we're, doing a World Cafe or whatever, we can say, no problem, all respect, but please save that commentary or those questions until the appropriate moment, that time slot. Okay, next topic, and this relates to that crossing the Rubicon that I talked about earlier. Excuse me, about when do we go from all of us together in one process to enfricating into breakout rooms? we could do it kind of organically. And one thing that occurs to me is, and it's entitled here, the Horseshack play, right? Remember Welcome Back, Kotter and Horseshack, ooh, 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 right? From time to time, people can say, oh my goodness, I really want to branch off into this topic, even though we may be on a different trajectory. They can pull a Horseshack and say, look, I'm going to this breakout room to talk about this. Does anyone want to follow me? And people can raise their hands and then follow. If nobody raises their hands, well, Horseshack may want to hold off on that for a better opportunity when people can actually follow. Or she or he may just break off and then do a recording, a Horseshack recording, even if they're the only ones in the breakout room. Another related topic, even though it's on the Horseshack line, is that whenever anyone goes to a breakout room, please record and then upload it to YouTube, right? It's free to do that. And then we can have some volunteers who have giant, multi-terabyte hard drives to go and then actually download those recordings and their transcripts and everything like that, so that we can, consolidate all that data, because we're going to have some really good recordings. And then all the recordings that happen on a given, Tuesday, and there, hopefully will be dozens and ultimately hundreds, even thousands of them as we grow this thing. We can do a day in the life. Remember those books, coffee table books, A Day in the Life of Ireland, A Day in the Life of California? I once saw a little documentary on it, and the producer of the thing said, a day in the life is just one of those crazy ideas that's very inefficient and blah, 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 but that works. It works. It just works. There's something about that. So anyway, a day in the life of, cooling and overheating planet could be our coffee table, not book necessarily, but book of videos, if you will. Another topic is recruiting, success stories around recruiting, right? Hey, we successfully recruited this whole community, and now there's, dozens of people from this community who are here now with us. Okay, well, how did that happen? We analyze that. The next topic is, it's called the coolest mega church. Some of these topics are just way out there, just like not brainstorms, but brain farts. This might be one of them. The coolest mega church. I mean, in a way, we're kind of like a mega church. We have this belief, right? We believe that, cool is coming, and we're, here in community, in solidarity, and who knows, maybe Guy is our Reverend Moon or something like that. And Guy, I really hope you never take success when I say hopefully funny stuff like that. Or maybe it's not so funny. I don't know. Anyway, love you. No disrespect there. Just kind of, anyway. Next slide. Okay, this one these were some notes from a few days ago when I started. You can see up here, it says topic in the upper left, and then path, kind of like a taxonomic pathway of major topic and subtopic, etc. And I was just kind of playing with the concept. So for example, this pathway, you see S&S, that means sectors and segments of society. And the basis of segmentation can be multiple, like here, down here, it's based on sectors, here it's based on segments, here it's based on beliefs. Anyway, so now let me get back to the topics here. Topic, deniers versus believers, and, kind of chunking out that spectrum because there's shades of gray, and then, strategies for marketing by shade of gray. Oh, I'm talking with this kind of person, and maybe there's a way to diagnose it. Ask a couple of questions. Oh, got it. They're this type, typecasting. Ooh. Anyway, all right. Well, how do we deal with people of that type? Next topic. Now, here's an interesting sort of spectrum, and I put the taxonomic pathway. There's information, there's categories of information, there's spectra of information, and here I'm kind of creating three major zones of this particular spectrum perspective, which is, first, there's data, temperature, measurements, radiation, whatever. So we have this hard data. It then goes to the next sector of the spectrum, which is Analysis and modeling. What do we do with that data? We crunch it down. Okay, we analyze it. We run statistics on it. We run it through a model, or we create a model for it, or whatever. And then that generates results. And then those results go to the next sector of the spectrum, which is meaning, right? What do we make that mean? Like, I take all the data and the analysis of it, and I make it mean we need to cool the planet urgently, right? Okay. Next topic. It's called The Overheating World According to Jamin. And it's kind of a case study of an individual, for what it's worth, not just me. I just use myself as an example, but let's look at others and have maybe a series of questions or kind of a deep dive. And that can be for multiple purposes, segmentation, marketing, whatever. What did it take? What was the moment where Jamin like really got it, etc. Okay. Next topic. Forms of collective human intelligence. And like, for example, and I list 3 here on the right, there's conversation-based, which I've gravitated a lot towards, because you can transcribe them and, we can cross-pollinate. It's just kind of the quickest feedback is, get in conversation. That's how we quickly determine a whole bunch of things. A subset of that is universal logic. And we've got a friend from Canada, Mark McCormick, who's like way into that and has kind of mastered it based on Hegelian logic. Another that's not conversation-based, that's actually text-based, is brain swarming. And Dr. Tony McCaffrey has a cool video that you can just Google, or I think you have to Google it, I'm not sure, or YouTube it. But anyway, there was a Harvard Business Review or HBS, whatever, short video that he did, and it's really quite compelling. Okay, next topic, what I call the sector relay race, right? And what I mean by that is, there's all these different sectors, as I've talked about in that Google Doc beyond the big 3. There's government, private sector, academia, NGO, nonprofit, religious, financial, insurance, tech, media, military, blah, blah, blah. So a sector relay race, we're going to start a bunch of relay races where we generate something as the people, the ultimate Uber sector, if you will, which we then hand off to, like, for example, I talk about somewhere in here that we hand something off to the insurance sector and say, look, you guys are about to all go out of business. But if you guys finance, say, cooling the planet, marine cloud brightening or whatever, then, you can have whatever members of that consortium ante up for that can then get privileged access to information, to us, to the collective human intelligence, etc. And they can then use that to optimize their offerings, where they insure, where they don't insure. Maybe they're the only ones who insure in a given area because everyone else assumes they're going down, but they know better, and blah, blah, blah. And then who knows, maybe the insurance sector, having grabbed the ball, will then influence government and tech and whatever, the media. Anyway, I call it a relay race because different sectors can then pass the baton. We've talked about us, the people, passing the baton to one individual, Elon, and then having him pass the baton to private companies that he either operates currently or could found to go after these specific opportunities. So anyway, just sector relay race. And it's a race against overheating. Next topic. The public attention grab. This is something I've kind of specialized in, both in my drug cartel days, cannabis days, COP26, etc. And we've talked about, for example, doing that in Alameda. We talked extensively about that a few weeks ago. So that's a thing, that's like a real action that we can take coming out of these conversations, where we bring it to the attention of the world and say, this event was sponsored by PFCP. Pausing for a second. Okay, next slide is, there we go. And the top one I just covered already, which is the insurance consortium one. Next topic is Hollywood Squares. When we get to the point where we're doing multiple breakout rooms, since we can have our trusted broadcast bot in each and every one of those rooms at the same time, we could take the video feeds coming from that broadcast bot and put it in, a Hollywood Squares kind of screen on a website, and then people can see all these different conversations happening in parallel. And anyway, there's lots of cool stuff that can come from that. That way you can kind of like listen in before you even pop into the room. I mean, how many times have you popped into a Zoom room and then said, oh crap, I don't really want to be here, but you can't really make a graceful exit right away, or you don't want to be rude. But this way you can just peer in, try before you buy, try before you enter the room. Next one is a pathway out of virtual isolation and into virtual community, because it's quite isolating being in this madhouse of humanity on planet Earth in 2024, when there's literally like 1,000 times how many there were for most of our existence as a species. We were around 10-12 million of us. Anyway, it's crazy, and we're kind of in this virtual isolation, alone in a crowd, going crazy in a crowd. And I put in an example from the Narcos series on Netflix, Don Neto and whatever. But anyway, that's a topic. Next topic, the ultimate commons, right? I think what we're creating here is ultimately going to be the ultimate commons. I've talked about a federation of different forums. That's all on cooling the planet. Well, imagine there's a whole other federation of forums over here on saving the biosphere, another one on feeding everyone, another one on transforming the economy, another one on transforming politics, another one on spiritual transformation, blah, blah, blah. I think we can create a model. We're creating a model here that is exportable into other crises, topics, issues, what have you. And I'm quite excited about that. And ultimately, this will create the ultimate commons, where people can just quickly find those conversations that map to what they're curious about or passionate about, or where they want to contribute or whatever. And I think we can the 8 billion of us can become this well-oiled, amazingly sophisticated machine. So that's a dream I have. All right, screen sharing, the next slide. Okay, this is just kind of I'm going to keep this slide up for a minute. It's a couple taxonomies, right? So, and this maps to the question number 3 in the big 3. Well, the first is the first 2 questions, the overheating of the planet and the cooling of the planet on the left-hand side, but the much more complex taxonomy is the one about the people. So I've got it divvied into planet and people. The planet side is, again, very straightforward. You can imagine other branches branching off of planet, especially as we get into other forums, or really other federations of forums on other issues. But here we're focused on the heating and cooling specifically. But first is the diagnosis of, what's the urgency, what are the causes, what are the projections, remember data, modeling, meaning, those 3 sectors. Then on the cooling side, we have the different categories of cooling, and then, modeling and optimization. We're just getting started here. This is just kind of a starter set of kind of obvious topics. And then on the people side, segments and sectors, remember all these different sectors, fail, fail, fail. And then the ultimate sector, here's like sector relays. So for example, once we've identified all the sectors, then I just did squiggly lines because I didn't know how else to indicate it, but it's kind of like this weird pathway. Start here, then go here, then, way up to here, and then down here, and whatever. Anyway, so the sectors, the relays, of course, can double back and hop around. So there could be a sector relay. Then there's segments of society, more like segments of the population versus sectors of the economy. There could be a segment relay. There could be a belief relay, right? Where, remember this spectrum from deniers to who I call full picture believers. Those are us, speaking in broad brushstrokes. And, subtopics are like marketing and PR, but there could be a whole belief relay. Start with the true believers and then work our way this way is kind of the obvious way, right? And I imagine dominoes falling as we make true believers, full picture believers out of everyone, right? That's kind of inevitable, I think. Anyway, so taxonomies. Okay. The next slide, now imagine sort of compressing that taxonomy into a single list. And that's what I've kind of done here. Here I kind of compress, and then it's just like a list of topics, really, but with the same basic organization as the taxonomies, except lower dimensionality, so kind of flattened. And then for each topic, imagine this vertical line that I'm showing here with my mouse. For each topic, there's different layers of information, layers of activity, layers of assets. So there's the conversational layer. Hey, what are all the conversations that have happened, are happening, or are calendared to happen on this topic? So I can put them on my calendar and make sure I show up there. There's the wiki layer, right? There's, like I said, the calendar layer for all kinds of events. Maybe someone's just screening a documentary. Fine. There's the data layer, the databases layer, the content layer, right? Articles, posts, videos, all kinds of artifacts. There's the hashtag cloud layer. And then there's all kinds of meaning associated with hashtags, multiple meaning, disambiguation, etc. The whole Twitter layer or X layer is, I think, quite powerful because that's a commons in and of itself. That's a commons of communication, concise communication, with links to this, that, and the other. And it's a way for everyone to be notified. You don't have to be on an email list. Just get on Twitter and subscribe to what? Well, find the topic here, go down to tweets and find the hashtags and who are the people who are tweeting out updates on whatever. Speaking of updates, another layer is syntheses. Syntheses, different, the plural of synthesis. And that I wrote here, that competes with the wiki layer. Wikipedia tries to be this ultimate synthesis of everything, and they've become so corrupt. Actually, I'm afraid of saying even things like that because we've now got censorship. That's a whole other topic. But we've suffered quite a bit from censorship. Anyway, then there's the whole social network layer, like, spanning, or call it the social graph, whatever. Anyway, and the ... we're just getting started here. So, and then over here on the side, if you tilt your head to the side like I'm doing, layers of information, data, metadata, and, like data, analysis, modeling, and meaning, like we talked about earlier. So anyway, this is kind of like sort of between this slide and the previous with the taxonomy, it's sort of kind of like this ultimate picture of the backbone of collective human intelligence. The action, you think of it like a tree that's growing and growing and growing. All the action is on the surface, but everything inside, going back to, hundreds of years ago when that big redwood was just a tiny little sapling, it's got the history of all that. The growth is happening in conversations and in ongoing analysis, ongoing modeling, the computer simulation that's running overnight, that's on the surface as well. But then you've got all this stored information inside the old tree. Anyway, okay. Next slide. What else we got here? Okay. So here I'll go off screen share. Okay. There are people who are going to say, hey, I really get the urgency and everything, but, this particular forum, it's not quite doing it for me, the culture of it, the whatever, the approach you guys are taking. Okay, fine. If you don't like this forum, start your own, right? One of the most powerful things you can do in marketing, if you're the leader, right? Olson, who founded DEC computers, he didn't promote DEC. He promoted the mini computer. Promote the category. Microsoft didn't didn't just promote its own software, it promoted software as a category, right? Apple promoted computers, Tesla promotes electric cars. So if you're the leader of a category, you promote the category, not so much your own brand. So we say, hey, listen, if you don't like this forum, create your own. In fact, we'll help you create not a competing forum, because we see them all as symbiotic within the federation. We're serious about helping you. So if you want to create your own, and then we'll even promote your forum. Hey, here's our forum and here's our calendar, but here's all the other forums, and go there if you prefer, or cross-pollinate or whatever. When you promote the category, you own the category, right? If you're the leader. And, you know, okay, related topic is, you know, getting to 1% of humanity. 1% of humanity, do the math, equals 80 million people. How could 1% of humanity not be working and focused, even part-time, a couple hours a week? I'm not saying, hey, dedicate your life to this like we are. But how could 1% of humanity not be working even just a couple hours a week each on cooling the planet? Well, the answer, I think, is in the mass hallucination, delusion, addictions, et cetera, like we've talked about. But we're going to break through. That's a key milestone, getting to 1% of humanity, by the way. And with that, I think we got it. So I'm going to pause recording.